Hello there, and welcome to the second of our videos in the introduction of becoming a successful published author. And today, once again, I have Tom Singleton Jr. and I'm Gina Gardiner. And I want to introduce us before we start the video. Tom Singleton Jr. is a published author of several books, actually over 30, and is the creator of Tom Publications, providing mentoring and empowerment coaching to emerging authors to help them launch successful writing platforms. Tom is passionate about seeing humanity at large reach their greater potential, along with using his talents and platforms as vehicles of expression to demonstrate his effective leadership. I'm Gina Gardiner. I'm an international best-selling author multiple times. I am the host of the W4CY Leadership for Life TV and radio show. And my work is all about helping people become profitable, enlightened leaders of their own life and of their business. Together, we've got a lot of experience of self-publishing. Tom far more books than me. His number stands at over 30. I've got well over a dozen now, and the number is rising. And we're going to, in this show, talk about two very specific themes. Tom is going to share his practical knowledge of the process of publishing and what he sees are the really important sort of stages to go through and why. And I'll add my 2 pennies to that. And then we're going to talk about what's in it for the reader and what's in it for the writer, because there are some very, very important and great things that you can get out of writing a book as a writer, but also the person reading it has the opportunity to shortcut things, to develop expertise more quickly because they are piggybacking on yours. So Tom, start us off by identifying, if you will, each of these stages to becoming an author and why those are important.
All right, well, for starters, writing can be a fun and exciting process, especially if you're doing it for your own pleasure. When you decide to become an author, your first thoughts should be centered around what you want to write about. And if you like to create stories, fiction would be the best thing for you. But if you like me, nonfiction is much better, and it appeals to people that like to analyze history, science, or current events, and like to share facts. Either way, whatever form of writing you decide on, just make sure it's a match to your passion. First thing you want to do is choose your type of writing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Like I said, make sure it line up with your strengths and your passions. Then number 2, you want to pinpoint your target audience. Understanding who you plan to write for help you choose your topic, and it'll impact the content and the style of your writing. And whatever you decide to write about, it matters most that you and your target audience are happy with your final product. Number 3, you choose your topic. Take some time to brainstorm ideas and write down any and everything that'll pique your interest. Like with me, I always have a pen and some paper, a piece of paper folded up in my pocket that I carry around everywhere in case I get an idea out the blue, a random idea that happens to me once in a while. And so every time that happens, I write it down so I won't lose it. And the key is to find a topic that would keep you motivated, because writing is a long process. So it's in your best interest to put your time into something that's exciting to you.
Sounds like really great advice. So you've got the topic, what now?
Okay, one other part of this process is identifying your personal expertise, like we talked about in the first video. If it's a topic that you're interested in writing about, that you got prior knowledge on, and it's one of your favorite areas, that'll speed up your writing process, and it'll help your confidence if you already feel like you're an expert on that subject. The next thing is probably the most important thing after choosing to, what you want to write about. Research, because doing research on your topic is critical. It could easily take up to a third of the time you spend on writing a book, more than that in some cases. Even if you got prior knowledge on the topic, it's still important to do research to make sure you fill in all the gaps and make sure everything is lining up. Because the research that you put into a good book is significant and it's time consuming. And the longer the book is, the more time is required per page because of possibility of some continuity issues that's tough to track. The most important aspect of your research is seeing what books already exist on your topic. You know, because finding out what other authors already wrote on your topic is more critical if you decide to write a book based on historical events. Because it's always a chance that they use the same sources you might be thinking about using and reach the same conclusions. If that's the case, there's no point in repeating their work. So you should find another topic. But in most cases, those authors use different sources. And if they use the same sources, they ask different questions or a combination of both of those. So reading their work will help you put your own work in perspective. And it's important to know that good historians have to master the tools of being a researcher, interviewer, and a storyteller. Then after you do your research, you got to organize all of it. And then after you write the book, it'll take multiple edits with yourself and other people to make the book fit to read.
That's really sound advice. For me, I have not written his books around history, but I've written books about my area of expertise, which is leadership. And so when I've written a book, I've thought about very much, why do I want to write that book? Who is my target audience? And what is it I would like them to get out of having read the book? So when I'm planning a book, I almost start from the end point. What's the reader going to get out of this? And what is it that I would have found really helpful to know if I was trying to undertake that role or to do whatever it is the book's about? What would be useful to know in order to help people move along more quickly, or to help them not make the same mistakes, or to just accelerate their journey? And, you know, I think for me, the why of your book, why are you writing the book? Who's it for? Is so important. I'd be interested in your thoughts, because you've written lots of different genres of books for different audiences. So I suspect that your rationale for writing those books is going to have been different. So you mentioned in the last video that you have written books for prospective authors, for people who are interested in sports, for those who have Tourette's or who are in the family of those who have Tourette's, to help them understand and manage the condition. So when you're thinking about the book, what is it that what are the questions you ask yourself when you're writing a book in terms of what you're giving to the reader? Do you have a set of questions, or is it very different book by book?
No, it's different from book to book. You know, I always keep my target audience in mind and make sure it's a product that they'll be happy with and that they can identify with. Because since I have different target audiences for different pieces of work.
I think that's so important, is to know who you're writing for, and, you know, really think about what will be of value to them, because it doesn't matter what you write. I can remember when I first wrote Chariots on Fire, which is my story, and the principles that I use to live a positive life. But the first version of it, was much more of my story and was very cathartic because I was going into the ins and outs of it. But when I read the book, I realized that actually it wasn't going, there was a lot in there that wasn't going to be of real value to the reader. And so I rewrote it and stripped all of that out. And there was much more within that book about the strategies and the principles that I used. And it became a better book. But in fact, I wrote that book 3 times before I was happy that people reading it were going to get the positives out of it and be able to use that in a very straightforward way. So you talk about organizing. What strategies do you have for organizing?
Well, I guess when you're organizing your research, what I personally do is organize all my stuff, the stuff I research, by chapter.
Yep.
Organize it by chapter, and then it'll be easier for me to, just fly through the book. It won't take me as.
Can I ask, do you write the book sequentially from beginning to end, or once you've got the chapter headings, do you write it in different order and then put it together?
Yeah, most of the time I go from beginning to end. Okay.
Because I write well, certainly when I'm writing a bigger book, not so much the journals and intentional workbooks, but when I've been writing what I call a traditional style book, I create the structure, the skeleton with the chapter headings. And I've historically had a folder with, those plastic pockets. And as I've got ideas and bits of research, they go into the plastic pockets. And then when I find I've got an hour to write, then I would think, well, okay, I'll work on that chapter or I'll work on that section, which made it easier to write. And then I put the book together and created the sense of streamlining it. But I think what that identifies for those of you that are listening is there's no right or wrong answer, that you actually do it organize it in a way that suits you, but you do have to organize it.
Right.
Yeah. So having organized it and you're doing the writing, have you got anything to say about the actual process of writing?
Well, I would say you got to commit to it. You got to commit some time to writing. That's the only way it's going to get done, even if you can only put aside 15 minutes a day.
I think that's really good advice. But it's doing it regularly. So many people start a book and then it's just left, isn't it? And it never gets finished.
Right, and that's the only way you get better at it. Because when I wrote my first book, I had 2 jobs and I was miserable with both of them. And I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write until I had to go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, and not only that, I was playing football then. I was still playing semi-pro football when I worked on my when I was doing my first book. So I had to go to practice. I had practice on football practice Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and game day was on Saturdays. So I had to.
Not a lot of time.
Right.
No.
Right. So yeah, I had between work and football practice and games, wasn't a whole lot of time for me to write. So I had to make some time.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I'm a night bird rather than an early person. So for me, it was finding time at the end of the day that I would write then, but breaking it up so I could think, well, this section is a long section. I won't do that today, but I've got time to do this section. And because it was all organized and the structure was there, that made it very simple. Now, an area that you've got a lot of expertise in, and I have to say much more so than me, is in the actual producing of the book and then taking it from the written version into the published version. So talk our audience through how you approach that.
What you mean from
So
writing the book?
You've finished writing your first proof copy. What do you do with it then? So it's written, but nothing more.
Oh, okay. Well, you go through Kindle Direct Publishing. You order proof copies if you want to, or you can just proof it on the screen. And then after you set your pricing and all the markets you want to sell to, then you go down and click on the button to publish the book, and then you wait for it to be published, and then you can start selling it.
Sounds great. And then the whole job of letting people know that it's there through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through all sorts of other.
Then you start promoting it.
Yeah. And promoting the book is a very different situation. Perhaps we can talk about that in another video. But I wonder, could you show our audience some of the books that you've written?
Okay. Well, this is the first one, Diary of a Mad Pizza Man.
Yeah, great cover.
Yeah. Thanks. Like I said, this was my very first book, and this is the one that I was working and having a balance between work and football, with getting this one done, and everything in here is true.
Great. So what else have you got to show us?
This is actually the last book that I did, the one about Tourette's. Is my personal struggles with the condition, and I explain what this condition is and what it is not.
Yes.
And I teach people how to treat somebody that's got this condition.
Sounds like a very, very important book, and one that would be huge help to people.
Right. Okay. And this was one of the very first sports books I wrote. I'm a big San Antonio Spurs fan, and this book is for my target audience for this book is fellow Spurs fans and David Robinson fans. This was one of my first passion projects. I cover his career in this book, and then I take all the false narratives that was built around him, in his career, and I break those down and expose them.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you. I'd like to share a couple of my books. So Thriving Not Surviving is one that is all around personal development, and it's what I call a full book. It's it has 70,000 plus words, and it's very much a reading book. But then I've done a whole series of books for enlightened leaders, so Profitable, Emerging, Limitless, and Authentic Leaders. And there's a whole series of books, and they're a very different style, but they're using my expertise and my growth. And then there is a book for those people who think about being an author, but it's very much sharing my journey. So people look and see and understand the different genre and types of books. And I know yours is very much a very practical book. Mine's around people helping themselves see themselves as an author, but yours is actually taking people through the process, isn't it?
Right, it is. And I just wanted to share one more book. This one overtook Diary of a Mad Pizza Man as my best-selling book. The Underappreciated Greatness of Tim Duncan. This is another book for Spurs fans, and even more false narratives and speculation that I have to destroy in this book.
Yeah.
And this book actually took me 2.5 years to write. It's 639 pages. You can tell
It's
by
a
the
real
thickness.
tome, isn't it? That's a labor of love.
Right, right.
So as we draw this to a close, I mean, the benefits for the writer, for me, are not only by writing the book, do you clarify your own thoughts, you actually move your own evolution on. That every time I've written a book, by the time I've written it, I've deepened and I've broadened my experience and my knowledge. And then for the reader, they have the opportunity to share that thinking and that experience. What would you see as the benefits for the writer and for the reader?
Well, I just look at it as I want to put out the best product I possibly can, because readers can tell the effort that you put into it, because they're a lot smarter than 20 years ago. They can tell how much time and effort you put into your work, and how much research you put into it. So, I look at all those things when I write my books, because you know I don't want to rip them off.
Absolutely. I think being really in having integrity about your writing and doing it authentically is so important. So as we draw things to a close, we will talk in another video about marketing your book. But thank you very much for joining us. Any final words, Tom Tom?
Well, I would say um, for new writers, or people that's wanting to write, if you can't find a book that you would like to read in a bookstore or a library, this is a golden opportunity for you to write it yourself.
Brilliant. On that note, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care and get writing. Bye-bye now.